All right, it looks like we are on the air. Thanks everyone for your patience while we got this Google Hangout set up. First time on a new platform, so there's always going to be some bugs. So apologize for that and any other technical difficulties we may have. For those of you who don't know, I'm Jimmy Dahman, Executive Director of Town Hall Project. We are a grassroots team that researches public events with elected representatives and post them online so that folks can find them and they can engage in dialogue with their representatives. Normally I say with their members of Congress, but starting today we are changing that, and we are super excited to be rolling out our programming to the state level to engage with state legislators. And the first one we're going to start with is the great state of Colorado. And we are so lucky today to have State Representative Dylan Roberts joining us.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good night.
Welcome. And you are State Representative for District 26, which is the Western Slope. And that's Eagle and Routt County, correct?
Yes. Yeah. District 26 is all of Eagle County and all of Routt County in Colorado, which includes towns like Steamboat Springs, Eagle, Gypsum, Vail, Oak Creek, Hayden, and Basalt.
Awesome. So coming to you live from the beautiful Western Slope. Excited to have you on today. What we've done is kind of just talk through usually ways that people can get involved, and I think we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think since we are rolling out a new platform, and I think a lot of folks have been in tune with the national conversation lately and some of this legislation and issues that are facing the federal government. But we're excited to hear about all the super important issues that are affecting people's lives at the state level. And hopefully we have a good crowd from Colorado joining us tonight to tune in. So Dylan, can you tell us kind of what are some of the biggest issues you expect the legislature to be dealing with in 2018, and if there's any big fights that you guys see coming up?
Yeah, so in Colorado, we have a couple key priorities that we're going to be focusing on this upcoming legislative session. With some unique budgetary restrictions that we have here in Colorado, spending on key services is always a big fight. And in Colorado, especially, what we've experienced in the last few years is trying to make the state of Colorado more affordable to live in. It's become very expensive to live in the state of Colorado, both in our urban areas and in the rural areas, because as a lot of you know, Colorado is a great place to live. It's a beautiful state, and thousands of people are moving here every month. So the big issues that come with that massive population growth are the issues of transportation and making sure that we have the infrastructure to handle all these new cars and all these new people that want to move around the metro area, as well as get up to the mountains. And then, as people start to establish their lives here, education funding, affordable housing, and protecting the environment and the whole reason why people came to Colorado in the first place are big issues. So at the legislature this year, because our economy is doing very well, we do have a little extra money in the budget to play with, which is not a common thing in Colorado. So there's going to be a big fight on whether we put that into transportation, whether we put it into education, whether we put it into other priorities that need to be funded. And how we do it and where that money gets allocated is going to be a big fight. But just like any other legislature, we have a very short amount of time to get our work done. In Colorado, it's 120 days, so it goes to the beginning of May. So every legislator, there's 100 of us combined, House and Senate. So every legislator has their issues that they want to push forward and that they've been working on for a while. So we'll be confronting those as well. Yeah,
a lot of work to do in a little bit of time. But it's a good window into some of the things you're going to be dealing with and some of the priorities you're fighting between. Are you personally introducing any legislation, or are there any bills that you are going to be sponsoring? Any things maybe under the radar, less beyond just the budget that are going to be big ticket items for you this session?
Yes. So in Colorado, every legislator is allowed to introduce 5 bills. You don't have to introduce 5 bills, but you can introduce up to 5 bills. There are ways to get around that number too if you are on certain committees and things like that. But in general, every legislator is going to have their 5 bills. The first bill that I introduced, it's already been introduced on the first day of the session last week, is a a bill that would mandate transparency in the price of insulin. So insulin is for people who have diabetes, mostly type 1 diabetes, which is an unpreventable disease, but you need insulin every single day to survive. And it's one of the prescription drugs that has risen in costs exponentially over the last few years, more so than a lot of other prescription drugs. So I'm introducing a bill that's actually modeled after a different state legislature that did this last year in Nevada, that says if you are a company and your insulin price goes up higher than the average consumer price index increase, then you're going to need to disclose to the people of Colorado, people who have to buy insulin, what's going into that price increase. So explain why you're charging what you're charging. It's a pretty simple proposition. I think a lot of when you're selling a lot of products, consumers aren't going to keep buying your product if you keep raising the prices with no considerable difference in the actual product. And so that's the first bill that I've introduced. And like I said, working with some legislators actually in Nevada we learned lessons from their fight over there last year and do it here in Colorado. And I'm going to be introducing some bills aimed at protecting clean water around the issues of mining, as well as a bill to address the increasing costs of healthcare, health insurance in rural Colorado, among some other ideas that I'm working on. And we kind of have the month of January as we get started here to finally, finalize our ideas and formulate our bills and get those introduced by the end of January.
Awesome. It sounds great. And I think that some of the theme we're hearing a lot where healthcare is a major issue across the board, and prescriptions and how states are dealing with that, also in the absence of a lot of federal policy that's been abdicated away recently. So yeah. It seems like a lot of states are figuring out how they're gonna make that work and how to make things easier for their constituents. So we're hearing, and it was interesting that you said you got some of those ideas from Nevada. I think the next question I had is, you can talk a little bit about your background. I know personally that you have a bit of an organizing background. So I was curious how that background of organizing and activism has translated and how that perspective has helped you so far in the legislature.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I come from my work experience prior to law school was working on campaigns in field organizing. I did both of the Obama campaigns in Colorado. So that's sort of how I got my start. And yeah, when you're, what I've learned very quickly is when you're trying to build a coalition around a legislative idea, trying to get a bill passed, you have to organize. You need to bring stakeholders to the table. You need to talk to people who will be in support of the bill, against the bill, and try and figure out what everybody's concerns are and make sure that you're crafting the best legislation that you can given all those interests. So yeah, putting together as many meetings as possible and going out and talking to people who would be interested in the bill. And then my bill hasn't been assigned or hasn't gotten a committee hearing yet, but in Colorado, like most states, you can bring in witnesses to testify for the bill, citizens, lobbyists, whoever. And so organizing all those people to come and speak in support of my bill will be organizing at its finest, I think. And then, yeah, figuring out another element of organizing and another way that we can share as legislators across state lines really good ideas is seeing what's going on in other states. And I noticed the insulin thing going on last year. And and when they were successful out there, I thought that's a great idea. And so I happily took some of their ideas and worked with the state senator in Nevada, and she was happy to pass along all of her materials so that we can keep it moving forward.
Awesome. Exciting to hear. And I think, again, you might have touched on this a little bit, but you said you bring, constituents and people in who have ideas like this. If you are a constituent and you want to engage with your state representative or your state senator, obviously we're going to post public events that they have. Are there other tactics, other techniques that you have people call, to people email, and what impact does that have on you and your work?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty obvious. Your state legislator is going to be much closer to you as far as geography, of course, but also just sort of the level of government. And so you have a really great opportunity and a much easier opportunity to actually get the ear of your actual representative or senator. So our emails are public. And when you send those emails, it goes directly to my inbox. I get it right here on my phone. Emailed us, call our office number. In Colorado, we only have one staff member. So you're either going to be talking to my one staff member or me. But then also, as a young person, but even our much older legislators are very proficient at Facebook or Twitter. So if you're sending them messages or, following them on social media and engaging with them on social media, I think you'll have a pretty good success rate. And so much different than a member of Congress, where you probably would have to go through 5 or 6 levels of staffers or whatever, or security or whatever, to even ever have the ear of your congressman or senator at the state level. We are available, and we'll probably get back to you that day.
Yeah, that's I think one thing that we're super excited about is when folks reach out, it's less likely to get a form letter or a canned response, which, still important for the tallies and to make sure that people are aware that we're paying attention. But I think at the state level, a lot more opportunity for real dialogue and hopefully, democracy at its finest. So that's exciting to hear. I think we're going to get going, but we have one question from the audience that I just got that was typed in. Somebody wanted to know if you had any more foresight on affordable housing legislation in Colorado and what you think might be some of the fixes there. Somebody more interested in that policy. So.
Yeah. So affordable housing is something that is really important to me and my district, and I think the whole state. And there's some really good ideas that I'm hearing being kicked around. And I'm looking forward to working with some legislators on this. One of the bill ideas that it might not get brought this year, but it'll probably get brought again next year, and hopefully we'll flip the state Senate here in Colorado. That's a political issue, but is a filing fee on real estate transactions in Colorado. Currently, there's a 1 cent per page filing fee. The bill would raise it to 2 cents per page, and that extra cent would go to an affordable housing trust fund in the state of Colorado, where the state government could give out to local governments and local public-private partnerships who want to build affordable housing. So I think that's a great idea. A bill that has already been introduced, it's not my bill, but one of my colleagues has introduced a 25-cent per bag tax on plastic grocery bags. So if you don't bring your reusable grocery bag to the store, you have to buy a bag. It'll be 25 cents per bag. And then that extra money will go to an affordable housing trust fund in Colorado that could be sent out across the state. So those are some tax fee type pieces of legislation. There's always legislation we can do to make it easier for people to actually build. So some of the permitting requirements, some of the construction defects laws in Colorado that are prohibitive right now for people for developers to build, we can make it easier for some building to happen. So those are some of the ideas that are going on. There's some little, other things of landlord-tenant protections, trying to protect renters from predatory landlord practices or things we're going to be working on. And, unfortunately, there's no silver bullet, and it's something that we have to go at this piecemeal approach, I think. But hopefully we'll get there and try and find a place for all of these people to live affordably in Colorado.
Yeah, it seems like public policy is a lot of that, little bits here and there to tackle some of the bigger problems. The plastic bags and for affordable housing sounds like a double whammy: environmental protections and affordable housing in one piece of legislation. So very interesting. And the good thing is, if folks have more questions, it seems like they can reach out to their legislators here in Colorado and hopefully get responses from them and be able to engage with them. So excited to hear that. Thanks again, Dylan, so much for joining us. Anything you want to say before we head out here?
No, thanks. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. I know the Town Hall Project has been doing some pretty incredible work over the last year, and stopping some pretty bad things, or at least putting a lot of pressure on some of our members of Congress in Washington. And I'm glad that we're engaging on a state level too. I think, I'm a little biased because I work in the building, but what happens at your state capitol every day really affects your life on a really, daily basis. So engage with your state legislators, try and figure out who they are, call them, tweet them, Facebook them. They will talk to you, they will respond. And if you're near your state capitol, go to your capitol and just show up, go to committee hearings or ask your state legislator what's going on. And it's really easy to get involved, but really you can make a big impact. So I would encourage everybody to do that.
Cool. And if history is any precedent, it seems like the folks in Colorado are pretty engaged and active and fired up, and hopefully folks can find a newfound appreciation for engaging at the state and local level, where a lot of this stuff really happens. So thanks again for joining us. And if folks have any more questions, feel free to email info@townhallproject or shout at us on social media, and we'll make sure to follow up with you. And thanks again so much, Dylan, for joining us. And everyone have a nice evening.
Bye, guys.